So if you don't know me, my name is Darren Gertis. I do these daily updates on what's going on in Ukraine. I have a lot of headlines to get through. About half of them are Russian state media. So let's begin as quickly as we can. For the last few days, we've been talking about the drone strikes. But what's happened is that because Russia has run out of missiles, they've gone to drones. But they used Iranian drones. And in doing that, they've kind of ticked off the Israelis. So here, this is Al Jazeera, okay? Israel, Ukraine discuss air defense systems for drone strikes, okay? Ukraine and Israeli officials have held talks about Kyiv's request for Israel to provide air defense assistance. Dmytro Kuleba said on Thursday that he had spoken on the phone with Israel's Prime Minister Yair Lapid and discussed in detail the provision of air and missile defense systems and technology. So it looks like the more that Russia relies on this, the more they're getting Israel to kind of come over to their camp. The Israeli Prime Minister had expressed deep concern over the military ties between Russia and its archfoe Iran. So again, look to the interest and find out what's going on. Israel would be able to assist in the development of life-saving civilian early warning system, they said. So that's what they're going to do. But what Ukraine's ambassador really hoped for was he asked for systems that would shoot down the drones. He's not getting that, but he's getting systems that's going to detect these drones. And that's not nothing, because Israel has the world's leading technology in this, and providing that would be incredibly helpful. Next, Zelinski accuses Russia of plotting to blow up the Ukrainian dam. President Zelinski has accused Russia of plotting to blow up the 2-mile Nova Kakhovka Dam. It would cause a large-scale disaster. Now, there's actually a term for this, and I talked about this about a month ago. It's called war wilding. It's using natural disasters or natural flooding or things along those lines to your advantage. And the Ukrainians actually did this to some degree by flooding certain areas when the Russians first came in, but not by breaking a dam and causing large-scale harm to civilian populations. But that's not outside of Putin's possible repertoire. In his nightly address on Thursday, Zelinski said that he told European leaders Russian terrorists had mined the dam. Now, why would I believe that that was the case? Watch whatever Russia says, and when they're accusing the other side of doing something, they're probably doing it. So here, a little bit lower, the Institute for the Study of War think tank concludes that Moscow is likely continuing to prepare for a false flag attack by the retreating forces. Sergei Surkovin, the commander of Russian forces, said on Tuesday that he had information that Ukrainian forces were preparing a massive strike on the dam and warned of disaster if it was breached. That means they're probably doing it. Okay, so generally speaking, I would say, no, you can't say that. But the Russians do this over and over and over again. Whatever they say the other side's doing, that's kind of what they're doing. It's like, it's almost predictable at this point. Quote, we have information on the possibility of the Kyiv regime using prohibited methods of war in the area or in the city of Kherson, on the preparation of Kyiv of massive missile strike on the Kakhovka hydroelectric dam. Now, Ukraine does not want to flood the river and the basin below because it's going to negatively affect tons of Ukrainians. They do not want to do this. But the Russians, well, they're destroying power plants and trying to attack these kinds of facilities. So it's probable that they're behind it. Next, 9,000 Russian troops to be stationed in Belarus. This is according to The Guardian. And I'm just going to read this one little passage. The Belarus Defense Ministry has said that 9,000 Russian troops will be stationed in Belarus as part of a regional grouping of forces to protect its borders. Hold that thought. When we get to fun with Russian state media, you'll understand why this is important. Vladimir Putin fires a sniper rifle at Russian boot camp after Ukraine setbacks. Okay, so there's footage that's being pushed out into the media, both the Western press as well as Russian media, footage of the inspection of the training facility, and he's sitting there with a sniper rifle. Okay, this is a guy that likes to be the leading scorer in a hockey game because nobody's stupid enough to let him not win. and ride around shirtless for some unknown reason on horseback. So here's what he's doing. He's been shown firing a sniper rifle while visiting training facilities for reservists. Russian TV showed him lying under a net on a field wearing goggles and ear protection. And so here he is inspecting the troops, and that's all well and good. Okay, so now it's time for fun with Russian state media. Here's the same article from RT. Kremlin reveals how often Putin takes up arms. Really? Like he's fighting, he's taking up arms? Russian President Vladimir Putin takes up arms very often because he likes to try new models, according to Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. Quote, I do not think that this is connected to the military operation, especially since Putin took up arms far from twice, but very, very often. Completely normal practice. Okay, so he's being a real tough guy here. And Putin also met with some of the conscripts and visited a shooting range at the training grounds where he took a few shots with a Dragunov SVD sniper rifle. Okay, poser. You want to see what this is supposed to look like? This is what it looks like. This is Zelinski actually visiting the front lines. You know where Putin is? Putin is 500 plus miles from the front lines. But he can act like a tough guy with, posing for the camera with his sniper rifle. Okay, I told you, hold that thought about Lukashenko. Lukashenko, I've been to Belarus, and Lukashenko is just like... He's often trying to insert himself into things, but then he says something one way and then says something the other way and is wondering why he's confusing. So there's an old saying in American politics, are you with the stupid party or with the evil party? He's with the stupid party. He might also be evil. I'm not putting that aside, but it's like he just doesn't get how he's confusing people with what he says. Okay, there won't be a war involving Belarus unless other nations want to fight against it, the country's president said. Don't pay attention to this howling, the country's state media outlet Belta quoted Lukashenko as saying, we're not going to go anywhere today. No war at present. We don't need it. Well, you can see why that's confusing when last Friday, Lukashenko announced that the deployment of a joint Russian-Belarusian contingent in the country, and he cited heightened tensions. So you're sending more mixed signals than a dyslexic third base coach, and you're wondering why people are looking at you like, what? What's going on? Okay, next. Russia's grain harvest hits all-time high, crows RT. Well, turns out when your fields are not being bombed, you can have a good harvest. So, I'm not sure why this is an important article. We expect to reap a maximum of 150 million tons. Of course, this is an absolute success for our farmers and the Russian agricultural industry as a whole. Like I said, if you are being bombed at the same rate, it might not be going so well. Okay, Russia warns it may reassess ties with the UN body. Why? Because of the Russian drone issue, where they're getting drones, they're buying these drones from Iran. So there's a probe into the alleged drones transfer from Iran. Moscow's deputy permanent representative to the UN, Dmitry Polanski, said on Wednesday that Russia may have to, quote, reassess its cooperation with the United Nations. Okay, they're threatening to walk away or not be part of the UN or whatever. But again, this is what Russia does. They threaten things they don't actually intend to do, but they threaten so that they can get their way. We hope that the Secretariat and the Secretary General will not violate the decisions of the UN Security Council and not go beyond their technical mandate and refrain from participating in any illegal investigation. When Russia talks about anything illegal, it's absolutely baffling to me that they can say this with a straight face while they're doing what they're doing to Ukraine. Otherwise, we will have to reevaluate our cooperation with them, which is not in anyone's interest. It's not even in Russia's interest, but they're saber-rattling, trying to get their way. Okay, next. Have we already forgotten the CIA rape of Russia during the 1990s? Okay, at least this is an opinion piece, and it's written as such as an opinion piece, and so I'm highlighting that point. But here's what's being consumed by Russians in Pravda. Nowadays, we can witness an all too clear way of how the USA, with the help of its death squad called NATO, has dragged Ukraine to the slaughterhouse in order to have a widened path to Russia. This is actually stuff that they kind of believe, and they're looking at it like, well, they're just after Russia, and it's like, it's kind of like a paranoid thing, and they just keep saying this narrative until they believe it. Or, as Carl Gershom, head of the U.S. Subversive Activities, put it in September 2014, Ukraine is our biggest trophy and an important step on the way to overthrowing Putin. Well, Ukraine's not a trophy. We weren't even paying attention. Like in 2014, we weren't even paying attention to what was going on in Ukraine. And that's why what happened was allowed to happen. Now that that happened, we're now focused in on it and paying attention and trying to stop it. But had Russia not invaded, there would be no NATO opposing Russia right now. And that's what we have to understand. William Engdahl, one of the world's foremost geopolitical experts, has described the devastation in Russia during Yeltsin's time as a gigantic rape staged by the CIA under George Bush senior tenure. It was the second rape in a row. Okay, so he's calling what happened in the 1990s rape of the country as if the U.S. just took advantage of them. The U.S. didn't take advantage of Russia. What happened was there were oligarchs. Read this book, Putin's Kleptocracy. Okay, I'm almost done with the book. I can recommend it with a straight face because I'm very close to being done with it. You'll understand how Putin was paying off his friends as he rose to power and essentially created the oligarchs. Now, in fairness, Ukraine has its oligarchs too, so the same kind of thing was happening there. But this wasn't a CIA-sponsored let's overthrow. In the United States, the idea was, hey, the Soviet Union broke up. Great, they're going to become democracies. And we were all disappointed when it became this kleptocracy where these people took advantage of the poorest of the poor within their nation. Okay, and Ukraine switches TV broadcasts into English. So Ukraine's state-run TV channel, Freedom, decided not to broadcast its programs in Russian. Well, there might be a reason for this, but from as far as Pravda is concerned, and this is Pravda RU, as far as they're concerned, it's just because they're anti-Russian. Well, they are now. They used to not be anti-Russian. They used to be speaking in Russian language, and there was a reason for it because that's what people liked and bought. Okay, here is a quote. The Russian language must disappear from our territory completely as an element of hostile propaganda to brainwash our population. English is obligatory. Our mother tongue is obligatory. Okay, so let's unpack that. Why must Russian whatever disappear? Because there's generational hatred because you came in and started killing people within this territory. Even people within the 4 oblasts that you claim that you're protecting, you're shelling. Like in Zaporizhia. I mean, this is supposed to be the inches of ground that you're not going to cede any inches, but you're killing the people that live there. So there's generational hatred that you brought on yourself. Now, I think it's a wise move for them to broadcast in English. And here it is. This is the network that we're talking about. It's uatv.ua/en/live. And if you Google that, you'll find, and I've watched this, some of their stuff has English subtitles or English translation over it, and I find it to be very useful. Try to watch this if you are interested in seeing what the Ukrainian perspective is. It's pretty helpful. Okay, that's all that I have. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching this and being the kind of person that cares about what's happening in Ukraine.